What's going on, San Angelo, Texas? Welcome to episode 116 of season 7 of Talking Throws Podcast, Texas Style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Janelle.
And we are throws coaches with the track club, the Thorn Factory. You can go to our website at thornfactory.com to check out our bios. If you're looking for lessons online and maybe you live out of state or you live in San Antonio, you can still go to the site, maybe set up an appointment. We can train you online. Or even willing to maybe meet halfway coming in person. If we don't fit your needs, we have other coaches at other locations. Coach Jarvis East at the Thorn Factory, our new coach Casey Keeter north at the Thorn Factory. He's in the greater Wichita Falls area. And then also Morgan Knight runs Night Power and Performance in the greater Abilene area. So if you go to the website, thethornfactory.com, and you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you'll see links for Fiber Sports Discus, fourthrows.com, using that code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. But also we're partnered with a new company, Present Moment Mindset. Present Moment Mindset, that's a website. It's ran by a previous episode guest, Michelle Gregovich. We're trying to optimize mental health for sports performance as well. So if you're a young athlete, maybe a coach that's kind of having, some hurdles you might need to kind of deal with, she is the person that can help you get over those hurdles. So that website again is Present Moment Mindset. Be sure to go follow and like her social media as well. We'd like to thank our sponsors for season 7. Without them, we can't do what we do. First off, Texas Track and Field Coach Association. That website is ttfca.org. Everything you need to know for track and field in the state of Texas, whether it's indoor meets, outdoor meets, rules, record books, anything you need to know, ttfca.org is a website. Fourthrows.com. Quality implements priced right. You can use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Right now, if you're looking for shot puts, if you're looking for training disc, if you're looking for high quality discus, hammers, javelins, whatever you need, go to the website fourthrows.com. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. If you're in need of strength training, whether you're a coach wanting to implement strength training in your throwers, we got the guy that can help you out. Ready Up Athletic Development, ran by Zach Phillips. He's out of the greater Austin area. He's put together a program called Basic Throw Strength. You can go to the site Train Heroic and use the code Throws10 to get 20% off. The program is called Basic Throw Strength. It's on the site Train Heroic. Use the code Throws10 to get that 20% off. One of our longtime sponsors, Fiber Sports Discus, a new way to get the distance. It's not just about the rim weight. Ran by Bruce Caldwell. You can go order directly from him, or you can go to fourthrows.com and use that code that we mentioned earlier. Also, a new sponsor for this season is NTX Timing, read by Carl Hornback and his crew. If you're looking to do a meet and you want to get the results published, NTX Timing is the best in the business. They're going to help you do seating, report generation, timing, post live results, and everything's internet. That's going to be much just right there on the spot. That website is ntxtiming.com. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Carl Hornback for more information. Also, Big Frogs and Lifting DFW, we thank them for what they do. Remind everybody, too, just to go out and download the podcast on all Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast, we're going to be on it. So just subscribe and also give us your opinion, and then remind everybody, too, about our YouTube channel as well. Today's guest is currently the throws coach at Angelo State. She has a lifetime PR set last year in the hammer of 65.88. That's 65.88. She is preparing to try to go to the trials this year to try to make the Olympics. She's had coaching stops at Chadron State, at Tiffin, at Southwest Minnesota State. She is a graduate from Southern Ilinois, Edwardsville, where she broke 12 school records. Please welcome to episode 116, season 7, Lizzie Virgl. A lot of stuff. So we're going to start current. and just kind of go current to maybe some of your coaches' history, then kind of you as an athlete, and maybe a little bit
Absolutely.
about growing up in Nebraska.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So Lizzie, tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing in your new role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started at Angelo State on October 2nd. So I haven't been here too long, but so far so good. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm the throws coach here. We just finished up with conference, which went really, really, really well. We had a lot of PRs, a lot of people outperformed what they were supposed to do on paper, which is always a good thing, always a really, really good thing. We are preparing to go to nationals now, which is up in Pittsburgh, Kansas, which is super exciting as well. But yeah, it's been a great time here. I've loved the transition and getting settled in and getting to know my co-coaches and everything like that. Loving the environment, both from a coaching standpoint, but also from someone who still throws. I really love training here, and the facilities and everything have been treating me well. And I just have a lot more support than I've had in the past, which is incredible.
Who's
So
the head coach there?
Thomas Dibburn.
Okay, and is that for the
Yeah.
boys and girls?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, do you coach boys and girls as well?
I do.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
I'll
Now,
coach the regular open throws, and then I also coach multi-event throws.
oh wow,
But I also have a volunteer assistant, Mark Petrus. He was a high school coach for, I want to say, 36 years, and he does help me out with the multi-shot put, just because the way our practice schedule lines up. Um, I have to be out with javelin for the multi-throwers at the same time that multi-shot practices, so we kind of flip-flop. So I'll have the guys first, and then he has the girls, and then halfway through we'll flip-flop, and then I take the girls and he takes the guys. So that works really, really well. But yeah, he's an incredible resource to have. He's been coaching in the Texas area for longer than I've been alive. So it's nice to have him kind of in my back pocket, and we knock our heads together, and sometimes if he gets stuck in something, I can hop in and help, and if I get stuck in something, he can hop in and help. And it's a nice blend of having kind of a more old school, really, really knows his stuff, knows the history of throwing really well, versus me who's more current and more like in the journals and in the research side of things. And it's just a really nice blend to have kind of two sides of the spectrum working together. So it works really well.
wow.
Sounds like it, especially if your kids got some PRs and performed
Oh,
better.
for sure, for sure.
The relationship is
Do
great.
you have any? Did you have any throwers make nationals?
I did not this year. We're still a really small young group developing. But I do have a lot of excitement coming forward for this outdoor season. I have a couple that I foresee making nationals very soon. So
Awesome. So how? And you said earlier you're still kind of competing to compete to go for trials, and it's an Olympic year. How do you juggle, that daily schedule of coaching, all that different schedule with the other coach and your multi athletes and your throwers, and then you get your training in?
oh my goodness, yes. It is really difficult. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I tell myself this a lot, that if it was easy, then everyone would be doing it. And so it's really not easy, but a lot of it is learning where to fit the puzzle pieces per se. So right now I'm in the process of switching from practicing after all of my athletes' practices to switching in the mornings this week. And that was a transition I wanted to do after indoors was over. Just because it's starting to get warm enough in the mornings to where I can do that, and I'm starting to get enough daylight to where I can do that before my office hours again. And just, you're constantly adjusting to things. I've noticed that with taking some time off, I ended my indoor season early so I could get more of a base that I didn't get this summer and fall because I had a shoulder injury last year that I was recovering from.
Okay.
And so in doing that now, as my intensity is going up in throws, and as my weights in the weight room and weights with the hammers, I'm starting to get a little heavier with the hammers because I'm starting to get more comfortable pushing with my right side again. as all that intensity and weight is coming up, I need more energy for my practices. And so waiting to do it at the end of the day, not the most conducive to successful practices. So rather than developing a really unhealthy caffeine dependency at about 6 o'clock at night, I figured it's probably time to start throwing in the mornings before my office hours start. And it's getting lighter in the mornings, and it's definitely more doable. So yeah, I've been switching to the mornings this week, and it's been going really well. But yeah, this morning was a little smoky, so that was a little tricky. But normally it's been going really well. It's just. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask it now. As you being a coach, do you kind of have a coach that's someone that's monitoring your training, your programming for your weights, or are you just kind of doing it as you go?
Now, I am monitoring it myself. I do have a couple of friends that help me every once in a while that I bounce some ideas off of. But my real last official coach was Judd Logan until he passed away. But to this day, Brian Cooper, he's over at William Jewell in Kansas City. And he's been one of my best friends since, oh gosh, I think we met my freshman year of college. Or my sophomore year. So sometime around 2015 to 16-ish, I think is when we met. But he's been my best friend for forever. He went to SIU and he's familiar with the John Smith lifting system. And has been familiar with me as an athlete since early college days. So if I ever, start to see a trend in my notes, I'll grab my notebook and hop on a phone call with him and be like, hey, have you ever encountered this? Or did any of John's athletes ever encounter this? Or what do you think of this? Or sometimes if I want to make a big change, I'll run it by him first and be like, hey, am I crazy for thinking this might be a thing? And he'll either say, yes, you are absolutely a lunatic, or no, that's actually pretty spot on. So.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
But yeah, for the most part, other than that, I do coach myself. And I have kind of a weird perspective of it. And this is something that I had to develop in the last 3 or 4 years, is I talk to myself in my head as if I'm one of my athletes. And
really?
Yes.
So
and it's weird. I've never heard anyone say that. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But it helps because I used to have a tendency of being way too hard on myself. And I wouldn't talk to my athletes the way I would used to talk to myself. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me, because I started doing this right around the first time I went to a USA Indoor Championships in 2020. And I got there and I just fell apart. And it was right before COVID went down. And I had never went to nationals or anything in college. So I had no idea what it would be like. And internally, I was beating myself up. Imposter syndrome, I don't belong here, yada, 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 And I was a graduate assistant up at Southwest Minnesota State at the time. And I thought about it because we had that long COVID summer after that. And I was like, why did I talk to myself that way? I never would have talked to my athletes that way. Why did I do that to myself? And as time went on and as I kept training, I started removing my feelings from it, I guess, is the best way to put it. And I started treating myself as if I am just living inside the head of one of my athletes. And I'll throughout all my practices, just so I have a voice there sometimes, I will talk to myself and be like, all right, Lizzie, you got to do this and you got to do that. And you're late with your foot. And I'll also give myself positive feedback. All right, Lizzie, that throw was really nice. Very good job. And sometimes I'll even give myself a little pat on the back. But if I don't do that, then it gets really lonely and it gets really hard. And, it fills in the gaps from not having a coach anymore. And it makes things a lot easier. And I'm a lot less hard on myself because, if I don't treat myself with respect up here, then I'm not going to throw confidently and well later. So
do you journal? Do
I do
a daily log?
I absolutely do. Here, let me roll over to my backpack because I have my training journal with me. And if anyone knows me, they know I'm absolutely insane about my training journal.
Okay.
So I have this year's.
Oh, wow.
It's flowery. I love it.
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of the flowers.
Do you have your
So-
athletes do journals as well?
Yes. Now, it depends on the athlete with how we do it. Some of them have a hard time with, remembering to write down things.
Yeah.
So some of them I've really gotten into, that notes app in iPhones.
Yeah.
A couple of them will do the notes app and then they add me as a collaborator. So then whenever they add stuff, I get a little notification. For example, when DeVoe was here, he graduated in December and moved on to University of Miami. But when he was here, he would do that in his notes app. And he would have all of his practices and he did a lot of extra stuff. And every time he added something, I could go in and write my own little comments in there or say good job. Or I love this is my favorite emoji. And whenever anything good happens, it's the party hat with the little noise maker. I love it so much. And so if I ever say good job or congratulations or whatever, that emoji has to be involved somehow. But yeah, so I love that. Whenever my kids want to do that, they add me as a collaborator. So then, if they think, oh, crud, I forgot to write such and such down, they just pick up their phone and they type it in that note. And it's more handy for them. But a lot of them also really get into writing the paper journals, which I also really like. I'll occasionally do journal checks, partially for accountability. I'm really big with accountability, but also partially I've noticed a lot of them enjoy the time at the end of practice where they just sit down and write. Or I've noticed it too with transitional phases where if we are outside throwing and then we have to come in and lift, a lot of them will take a good 2 or 3 minutes before we start the lift and just sit down and write. And I feel like it helps them kind of transition from throwing to lifting and kind of shift that mindset of, okay, we're going to be super technical and now we're going to move some weight, and I've noticed that a lot of them really, really enjoy that. But yeah, I'm really, really big into journaling. This group is the second group that I've gotten really into journaling. When I was at Chadron State, I really had a lot of them journaling as well. But I didn't make it mandatory until I got here at Angelo State. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm feel bad. I use the middle finger for my emoji.
Oh no.
Does that not work? I'm sorry.
It probably works. I probably shouldn't do that because then I won't have a job, but
There you go.
I like being employed. Yes.
I'm glad I wouldn't. So, and that's a great lead-in. So, is it different? Maybe because your first experience in Texas, maybe coaching some Texas athletes. What's your assessment of maybe being in Texas and being a hammer thrower in a state where there's no hammer?
Yes.
Kind of what's been your assessment since you've been there since October, just overall?
Oh, for sure. So I do like to notice trends between each group.
Yeah.
I will say these kids are tough with anything you throw at them until it gets below 30 degrees. And then I don't know who these kids are. It's funny. I love them for it though. It cracks me up. But the same is true. I can make fun of them for the cold. The second it gets above 90 degrees, they make fun of me for it. So all is fair. And I let them make fun of me for it. I know I'm a baby with the heat. But no, these kids are very, very hardworking. They're a great group. I will say of groups that I've had, this group complains very much the least, which is amazing and incredible. And I also think I have the best buy-in that I've ever had in a group in this group, which is absolutely incredible. I came in here and didn't really bump any heads with anyone, which is great. Everyone just kind of bought in immediately, which I can't say I've ever had happen. You usually have one or two that you kind of struggle with right at first, but this group, no, they've been absolutely phenomenal. I have no complaints. I really don't. They're a tough group. They don't complain, which is amazing. They're really bought in. They communicate really, really well, which is amazing. I just don't have too many complaints, honestly.
That's awesome.
It's pretty early, but I'm just saying, like, you seem like you're the perfect fit for San Angelo, Texas, and that surrounding in that area. It's kind of sort of like maybe you kind of found your home compared to maybe a couple other stops you've had in your coaching.
Oh gosh, I hope so. I really do like it here. I really do. So that would be nice if this is my forever place. I would really, really enjoy that.
Wow. So have you learned a two-step since you've been out in West Texas?
No, I haven't. I have to ask someone about it though.
There you go.
We'll have to.
For sure.
So what does your day look like? So you do your own training now, and then you set office hours. So does that involve practice, or are there other responsibilities you have other than throwing?
Oh, for sure. So as any college throws coach knows, there's a ton of paperwork. And every school's a little bit different with how they do it. So what my daily schedule looks like kind of depends on the day. But today we'll take today for an example. Today is kind of an unusual day. So for a typical Wednesday, oops, sorry, I've got hiccups right now. I don't know why. For a typical Wednesday, I would have office hours from 9 to 12 in the morning. And that's just time in my office that I'm here to, get paperwork done, turn in receipts. I need to do my pre-approval request. It's how much you think you're going to spend for the track meets coming up each week. And you have to turn in receipts from previous track meets, all that kind of gobbledygook that, all coaches have to do to make sure we're not laundering money or anything like that. That for me has also been a really, really big time for recruiting. At Angelo State, we really lean into our international student athletes a lot. And we recruit a lot of international student athletes. So I've been using a lot of that morning time on top of, turning in receipts and doing all of my pre-approvals and everything like that to, go through World Athletics lists and look for athletes and, recruit that way. And then also, looking for athletes through Instagram is a big one for a lot of coaches. Taking time to talk to other high school coaches, see who's got athletes that are coming up, and making those connections is huge. I do spend a lot of time just calling people, specifically high school coaches, and just chatting and seeing where they're at. Or I have a couple of club coach friends here in the area. I don't know if you're familiar with Caleb Seal over in Ramona, Oklahoma, but yeah. I call him a lot just because I've competed at his location. Oh gosh, I don't even know how many times at this point, but before I moved here. And so just kind of calling coaching friends, seeing who's got athletes coming up. Sometimes if I've got an idea I'll write my lifting programs during these morning hours as well. And so I tend to go in 3 to 4 week cycles with that. And so leading up to, putting off each lifting program, I do a lot of reviewing them, looking over past notes, seeing what worked, what didn't. Sometimes I'll reach out to other coaches who I know run similar lifting programs or have any kind of Smith style influence on them, and just be like, hey, what did you encounter when you dropped your reps in such and such month? Or have you done this before? Have you tried that before? And just seeing what other people are talking about and what other people are noticing and observing. And writing my practice plans for each week is another one. This week was kind of unusual. So we just came back from conference, and then I had a recruit today. So sometimes in the mornings, I like to do my recruits on Mondays or Wednesdays. So typically I'll meet a recruit on like 9 a.m., show them around our athletic facilities during my office hours, and then take them over to the head coach, have a meeting with the head coach, and then they usually go and do their tour around 10:30. Then I've got from about 11 to 12 before they're done with their tour, and then go have lunch with them, and then, so on and so forth, practice and go home and all that jazz. So that's, depending on the day, that's kind of what my office hours can look like. But no 2 weeks are the same. You run into a lot of stuff. And then usually we start practice, depending on the day, between 1:30 and 2 p.m. If I can run home and let my dog out, I usually try to do that around noon. But sometimes my dog's got to wait a little longer. But so we have practice usually around 1:30 to 2. If it's a double day, they'll probably start with shot and then finish with hammer. If it's a single day, they'll start with discus and then go to the weight room afterwards. And that's just kind of what my day looks like. When I am on single days, so Mondays, I'll start with discus outside. And then I'll take all the discus throwers into the weight room, get them started while my javelin thrower, Luis, is warming up. And then once I get all the weight room people situated, I'll probably leave Mark in the weight room, and then I'll go out and finish with the javelin throwers. I do have a freshman who's going to join Luis here pretty soon. And then that's just kind of what my day looks like. And then I bring Luis, and then eventually Cameron, my freshman, will come in and they'll do their lift after javelin's done. And it just kind of goes in stages. And the really nice part about that is no one has to wait for another group to get done. They can just finish, go to the training room, and then go home, which is really nice. It's really considerate of their time, and then I've never scheduled practices like this before. But this was just kind of the format that they already had when I got here. And honestly, I love it. So yeah, it's really considerate of their time. They have all of their mornings for classes. All of their afternoons are left open for their practice and their lifting in their training room time. And then they have their evenings for their homework, and then they start again the next day.
Welcome back, track people. This is Brandon, owner of fourthrows.com. We're a fast and growing track and field company that specializes in the throws. With our speed shipping, implement warranties, and rock bottom prices on javelins, discuses, shot puts, and hammers, call us up today to talk directly to one of the owners at fourthrows.com.
First experience, you mentioned earlier about recruiting internationally. At your other stops, did y'all kind of maybe focus within state? Is this your kind of first opportunity recruiting nationally? I mean, globally, so to speak?
For the most part, like, we would get an international student here or there that was really interested in the schools that I was at specifically, but we never really sought them out like we do here. And so learning to find where all those international students are hiding is probably the hardest part. And learning how to communicate to athletes that don't necessarily speak the best of English and engage their interest and have those conversations is kind of tricky, but it's something that I'm picking up, and I'm learning quickly and learning to use Google Translate a lot. But no, it's yes, and emojis. But yeah, no, it's something that I'm picking up, and because I've had a couple of international students, especially in like multis groups, and like I had one international thrower a couple of years ago, but nothing too crazy. It's not been to the degree that we are able to do here, which is really cool, because one of my end goals I would love to, once I'm officially done throwing, is train professional athletes. And having international throwers is one avenue that makes that a lot more possible.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Awesome.
For sure. Do you find that, when you're speaking with the international athlete, maybe they're a couple of years older and their maturity level and maybe their throwing knowledge might be a little greater than maybe what you're recruiting, the high school kid coming out of West Texas someplace?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Looking at some of the athletes I've been talking to and some of the athletes that I currently work with at Angelo State, I, like, for example, on the roster right now, we have a athlete who's quite a bit older than me, and he has so much knowledge, and it has been such a fun challenge, because that kid's probably been throwing longer than I've been alive, if we're being honest. And now
Really?
I'm coaching. Yes. He is 31, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he is 31. And so,
Wow.
yes. And then you have that gap that you got to bridge between, and he's never been anything but respectful to me. He's always been coachable and has responded well to feedback. But there is a little bit of a communication gap that you need to learn to work with well if it's going to be successful. And a lot of video gets used because I'll be describing something one way and he'll be describing something another way. And we're talking about the same thing. It just takes us a second to realize hey, we're saying the exact same thing. So, and he's been nothing but respectful. So I've been really grateful for having him on the team, and that experience has been just absolutely incredible. But yeah, it's kind of funny because sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, Elvis, I'm feeling old today," and he's like, "You're telling me," and it's funny. But yeah, no, you get when you recruit international athletes, you get a really wide variety of age, of knowledge, of talent, of everything, and it's really cool to work with. It's not. I've never, to the best of my knowledge, worked with anyone that was that much older than me. I've had athletes like early on when I was a GA that were right at my age because I was a young one. I was a 17-year-old freshman in college, so I was really, really young by the time I was coaching as a GA. So I did have a couple that were 5th and 6th year kids that were my age or a year older back then. So I guess I wasn't not used to it, but just, learning that a lot of coaching requires patience. And if you go in, I'm the best, I know everything, yada, 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 you're not going to gain the respect of your kids right away. Yeah. Whereas if you have some patience and you hear them out, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying the same thing that they're saying. We're just saying it differently. And, I've noticed that works really, really well, especially for me. And everyone's different. Everyone has their own strategies that work, but at least for me, that's what seems to help me a lot.
Yeah. Well, I noticed in looking at your throwing profile that you had a PR in the weight throw in January. So you started your year off good at Texas Tech. Tell us about that day. And I'm kind of curious, was your athletes there watching you throw?
Nope. So that was kind of an unusual one. So it wasn't quite a PR. I've been stuck at 1964 for my PR since 2020. Okay. But it was really, really close. It was so close. And I told myself if I could get back into consistently throwing 19 meters this year after my shoulder injury last year, then I'd be happy to put the pause on indoor and start working on outdoor. Because that would mean that I've gotten my indoor technique and strength levels up, specific strength wise for the weight, up to where I was last year. Because last year I tied my PR from 2020 at 1964 again. And this year I got back up to the 19 meter range, and I was really, really happy with that. And so that Texas Tech meet was so much fun. Oh my goodness. And it was just one of those situations where I hopped in my car the morning of the meet and drove down by myself. We didn't have a meet for the team yet that for indoor this year because we open our season really, really late, just with all the Texas schools here in the D2 Lone Star Conference here. We just open our indoor season really late. And so that was, I want to say, the week before we opened. And so I drove up to Texas Tech, went to that meet. Oh my goodness, I had a blast. Competed against a lot of our conference. West Texas A&M was there. Got to compete against some of their girls, which was kind of fun. Got to compete against Barton, is a JUCO that I really enjoy not only recruiting from, but their girls are always just hysterical to compete against. They're just a really fun group. And then just competing against the Texas Tech girls, New Mexico State's always fun. I know their coach really well. And just honestly having a blast. And it was just a really nice way to cap off my indoor season before I started to focus on outdoor and hammer and everything like that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I'm kind of one of those like crazy, happy, spazzy competitors. I am serious to a point, but I gotta have fun if I'm doing this because that's just who I am and how I enjoy the time because if I don't have fun, then it's not worth doing,
So have you planned out the schedule for 2024, getting, when's your first hammer meet? Are you kind of building, a couple of big meets before the trials? Are you going to go do the trials? What's kind of your plan this year as far as the throwing aspect of your life?
I have it all written down. It's going to be reversed, but I have it all written down in my notebook.
All right, you don't have to share all of
So,
it. Just
oh yes. So here's some highlights. I'm planning on doing a lot of those Sunday meets with the up in Ramona, Oklahoma, with
Okay.
Caleb Seal's facility up there. Those Sunday meets kind of really save my bacon, just because I don't want my throwing to take away from my kids' experience of having me as a coach. So if I'm constantly gone all the time, I'm not doing my job. So having those Sunday meets is going to be huge. One meet that I'm looking at, I want to say is the 13th through the 15th of April. They got it approved to have one of those World Athletics bronze level meets. And I think that's where I'm going to open up, because their entry standard for hammer is 65 and my PR is 65.88. So that's my tentative plan to open up. If my throwing is going really, really well before then, I might open up a little earlier. But tentatively, that's the plan.
Okay.
I'm looking at just picking up a bunch of those Sunday meets until our season ends. There's also some meets that I really like in the summer that go up in Boulder, Colorado on Thursdays. And I really, really like that ring. And I know Casey Malone pretty decently well. And they do all comers meets. And I've had some really good throws up there I'm thinking of. And then maybe afterwards, I need to look and see. I went to Tucson Elite last year and that was really fun. I need to look and see where that hits around our national schedule, because I don't think they've put out the dates for that yet. And I think it'll be before nationals. So if it's before outdoor nationals, then I won't be able to go. But if it's after, then I will. And then I was also looking at, I believe, what is it? I can't remember what week in June it is, but Ironwood has a meetup up there. It's like the last chance qualifier. So I might do that one as well. But that's tentatively what I'm looking at. If there is a meet that I can find a weekend that we're open where we're not doing anything, because we do have a couple of off weekends sometimes, then I might throw at a college meet or something, or find an opportunity that way. But I try to avoid it as much as possible, just because I don't want to take away from my kids' opportunities. But yeah, that's the tentative schedule for now. And of course, it'll probably change 100 times, but that's what I'm looking at right now. So,
do you find
but
it
yeah,
being like your own employer and your own employee, that, kind of being a professional hammer thrower, and trying to scrape and, make money, do all that, it's kind of like just really a roll of the dice of chasing this dream, right?
yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this year it is a little tight, just because I've relocated twice this year. And so it's a little bit harder financially this year than it has been most years, because, moving twice is kind of expensive. So that's something that I'm still working to figure out. But I have a lot of options and opportunities close to me. And so I do still think I'll be able to make it work. It's just, trying to figure out where the puzzle pieces fit and how we're going to do it is probably one of the hardest parts. So,
yeah. And you mentioned your PR 65.88. Where was that and when?
that was actually last year at University of Nebraska in Kearney. And it was a last chance nationals qualifier meet. And I went up just kind of on a whim. I had a lot of life changes that week. That was actually the week that my contract ended at Chadron State. So a lot of emotions, a lot of I don't know what's about to happen, because that was the week I moved to Pueblo, Colorado. And I drove up from Pueblo, Colorado to Kearney just to throw at that meet. And it ended up being such a special moment. Oh man, it was incredible. It was incredible. I was very happy with that meet and how it went, and getting to throw with my old athletes one last time and everything like that. It was incredible.
When I talked to you on the phone, we had a good conversation about the variations of different hammer, Mike, of being a pull hammer versus a push hammer. And I didn't get a chance to ask you kind of how do you view your hammer if you're coaching yourself and your technique, kind of that, what's the difference between a push hammer thrower and a pull hammer thrower as well?
So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. For me, I've always kind of dumbed it down to whether you are powering the ball by pushing it or whether you're powering the ball by pulling it. Now, there's so many different opinions, and there's probably no one is completely correct. I think it's all a large, like, we're all probably partially correct, and we're all also partially biased by our own opinions. So when I say this, I don't mean this to be gospel truth. I mean this to be, this is what I've found for myself, and the best way I've found to explain it to my kids with my experience and with my cues and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to say that this is absolutely gospel truth perfect, but this is just what has been most successful in my experience and my experiences and my biases and, you know, so on and so forth. But when I talk about pushing to power the ball, I talk about a lot of right side dominance in the throw. When I talk about pulling, I talk about a lot of left side dominance, or powering it by how you pull or how you drag the ball. A lot of throwers ideally want to be a good combination of both and want to incorporate that. Now, I didn't really learn that until, I would say, probably the last 2 years, which, you know, young coach syndrome, you think, oh yeah, I'm a push style hammer thrower. That's all I'll ever be. Ba 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 ba. You know, and then when you hurt your right shoulder and you can't be a push style thrower anymore, you are kind of confronted by your own boneheadedness sometimes, and then you know you have to adjust, and you have to think, okay, I still want to throw. I'm not going to let this right shoulder injury take me out. So how can I keep doing this? So that actually brings me into a really good conversation that I had with Danny Roberts, who's at Washburn University. He's a left-handed thrower, pull style, all that jazz. And so last year, it started the year before, but last year I started having issues with it. I had a torn labrum in my right shoulder, and I didn't know for a good majority of my season last year. So all of indoor, I didn't know what was wrong. Because I didn't know there was even a problem. I was just having a lot of shoulder pain, and I got to USA indoors last year, and I went to just freak of nature, get my shoulder stretched out because something just fell off. And the trainer, her name was Connie, bless her heart. She grabs my right arm as I'm on the table. She's messing with it. She's like, when did you dislocate your shoulder? And I was like, huh? I got to compete tomorrow. What? And she's like, oh, honey, you are so unstable. You've got some problems. And so she wrote me a recommendation to go get some imaging. And I went back to Chadron after competing. And I was just like, oh, you know. But the week before USA Indoors, we went to Washburn University as a team with Chadron. And Danny and I have been friends for a while. And I remember I borrowed one of his athletes' pairs of shoes and glove. And I'm standing there in my polo. And I want to say, like, black khakis or something like that. I don't know what I was wearing, but some type of dress pants. And we're just knocking heads in the ring because throws got done well before the rest of the meet. And I'm throwing weight in my polo, and a couple of my kids are listening and watching. And Danny kind of walked me through pull style because I was like, Danny, I don't know what's going on, but my right shoulder has just been a mess this year. And he's like, well, have this in your back pocket. It's going to come in handy. And I walked him through how I normally warm up with a static start weight for my first warm up, and he made some tweaks to it so it was more conducive to a pull style. And then we went through, and I can't remember exactly. I think it was like 12 or 18 throws. And I still have my notebook because I wrote down a ton of notes. I don't have that notebook with me. That's last year's notebook, but I wrote down a ton of notes from the whole session and talked it over with some of my kids. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys will never believe what I learned, you know, blah, 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 you know. And it was such a good experience. And then fast forward to me laying on that table, and she's like, yeah, you dislocated your shoulder. This is a mess. Your AC joint's a mess. Your labrum's a mess. Everything's a mess. And I was just like, oh no. And so I remember having myself a good cry on that Team USA training room. And then I was like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, but we're going to figure it out. And then this trainer, bless her heart, Connie, she prayed over me. She's like, you are going to find this, and you are going to do just fine. everything's going to be amazing, yada, yada, yada. And she prayed over me. And I was like, man, I feel great now. I'm going to go tackle this. And I remember I went to the practice day after that. And I tested out some of those because I'd been mildly practicing it leading up to it that week.
Yeah.
And tested it out. And I was feeling just really, really good about this meet. So I went in the next day. And I kid you not, I was so ready. I put my little glittery eyeshadow on and I saw Connie and we had ourselves a cute little prayer before I went out and checked in. And we went out, we competed. My first throw was just, good, confident throw, easy going. Let's feel it out. And then as we're throwing, as we're competing, I kid you not, I was like, man, I just really need to get one in the 19 meters. Like, that's what I need. I want to feel good about this. I'm right there. I'm just barely missing my third turn. Deanna Price walks up to me, and I've known Deanna for a while. This girl slaps her hand on my right ass cheek. Excuse my French if I cannot say that. Slapped me so hard that I had a handprint later on that night. I went to the bathroom. I was like, whoa, that's still there. Neat. But the way this went down is she slapped me so hard and then turned around and went and broke the world record right afterwards. And I was like, man, that's a lucky butt cheek right there. And then I turned around and I hit 19 meters and I was so proud of myself. I was like, yeah, this is great. So yeah, that was USA's last year.
You should have got it outlined.
Yes. And have her sign it.
I think I can't remember who made the joke that I should have had her sign the handprint on my butt. Someone made the joke, but I can't remember who. But yeah, I just thought that was so funny. And she hit me hard. Like, I was not ready for that.
I can imagine how hard she hit.
She is such a fun one to compete with. Because we've competed against each other since college, and I've known her really well. And oh my goodness, every time she is fun. I've yet to be in the same meet as her where she is not just a ball of life and energy and even though she's competing against you, she is trying to pump you up and she is having the time of her life. And sometimes her and Alicia and I will like look at each other and like shake our shoulders and stuff. Like they're all incredible. I have yet to have any kind of beef with any of the women's hammer or weight throwers. They're all just incredible people. But yeah, so that is USA Indoors / pull style. And since that, I really started leaning into the pull style last year.
Okay.
My PR going into last year's outdoor season was 60 meters. I want to say it was like 6109 or something like that. Something like not something that you would think, oh yeah, she's a post-collegiate hammer thrower. Like, oh yeah, she's someone who can't let go of the glory days. And that was 100% what it was. So I opened up at CSU Pueblo, where my friend Adam, he's the throws coach there. And I was still in my base, like sets of 10 for going into outdoor. I was not expecting anything. I was like, okay, we'll be lucky if we hit 58 today. That'd be awesome, right?
Yeah.
And I rock out, it was like 6120 something. I want to say 6127 or something like that. And I was like, huh? What? This is crazy. And then a couple weeks later, next meet was Kansas Relays. It was the 100-year reunion. I got to take a couple of my kids from Chadron down there to compete. And out of nowhere, 64 meters. I just kind of skipped 62 and 63, I guess, and just went straight to 64. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Still to this day, I have yet to throw a 63 meter throw. I don't know what happened there.
Jump over it.
Yeah, it's just there's an invisible barrier, I guess, at that distance, and I'm just not allowed to throw it. So, and then a couple more meters in the 60 meter range, like 60 to 61, and then 65-88 came at University of Nebraska in Kearney. So that was my year last year. It was pretty crazy. I finished up at Tucson Elite, sicker than a dog. My shoulder was falling apart. Hit high 50s and finished off with a 60 meter throw. And I was like, all right, this shoulder needs some rest. We're not going to make it. We're not going to qualify for USA Outdoors. We're we're not going to make it another month. So we got to call it there. And then I did 8 weeks off, 8 weeks of rehab, got back into it, and now we're here.
Oh, wow. Question about the pull variants. Does it change your grip? So if you went from a pull left side, did you get a stronger left-handed grip and a weaker right? Or vice versa?
Yes and no. So no matter what, the glove is always going to go on my left hand, and I'm always going to hold the hammer like that. What I noticed was not necessarily changing the grip. I will say, being a pull, and this is probably unique to me because of how my shoulder was, for lack of better words, disintegrating. The pull style made me hold the hammer a lot longer from me. And then I also noticed a lot more pressure on my fingertips. And part of that could just be down to throwing further and just, having more power, not power, but more pressure on the ball, or more pull, or more tension. But I was blistering through my fingers about every other day with the pull style, whereas the push style, I never really had those kind of problems. But I also think I had the tendency with the push style to not do things correctly. I think what the pull style opened up for me to do is to relax more with my arms, because I feel like I was so rigid with the push style. I was trying to power the ball, that I didn't allow myself to relax until I started pulling. And I honestly think that was the big technical change. I don't think it would be fair to say that it was a pull style versus push style, that pull is the end all be all by any means. I just think that the pull style put me in the mindset to learn more about hammer as a whole. So I don't think I'll ever be truly a pull only or a push only anymore. I think I just need to incorporate more. And balance my learning.
Did your winds change? Did your winds change from maybe with your right shoulder in the issue there and more of that pull style? I'm just kind of curious.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And a large part of it, if you ever watch my college meet days, is I have never had a good wind up until I would say this last year. And it wasn't for lack of trying on my coaches that I've had in the past part. I was just a very awkward, skinny, lanky, not very upper body strong person. And so in college, I always had just a really, really steep wind, which was not necessarily correct, but it worked for me. And it worked for my lack of strength, and it worked for how fast I was. Because I was a speedy little squirt back in my college days. Right now, I weigh in at about 210 to 215, depending on the day. Back then, I was only about 175 pounds. Yes. And I didn't really lift a whole lot in high school. But I also, I ran in high school, and I was just generally a fast person. And so we did the best that we could with the body that I had at the time. And one really, really nice thing to being a college coach is I've gotten to experience the best of my body in multiple different shapes and forms. And that has been really incredible. And I do firmly look back on my college experience and think, man, Coach Block really did the best that he could with the scrawny little squirt that I was.
How tall are you?
Because I think back of what would I have done if I was my own coach?
Hey, thank you guys for listening to part 1 with Lizzie. Tune in next week to listen to part 2. Good stuff. All right. We want to thank our sponsors for episode 116, season 7, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. Go to ttfca.org for all the latest in track and field. High school meets have been going, so look all that up. You can see ranks, top thrower, all that. What's all in there?
Texas Track and Field Coach Association. You can see the rules, current meets going out. The locations for the regional meets, the locations for Texas relays, all that. So that's all in there.
And Fourth Throws, fourthrows.com. Quality implements priced right. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. If you're in the Austin area, ready up AD, give Zach Phillips a call at 512-507-8347. Or look him up, follow him on Instagram. Also check out his program, Basic Throw Strength, that is through the Train Heroic website. We've got a code for you. Use Throws10 to get 20% off of that. NTX Timing, let Carl Hornback and his crew manage your meets. Their logo is "You ain't waiting on us." You can get these meets run correctly, and contact NTX Timing. Then Big Frogs of Colleyville for all our embroidery and printing needs. And then Lifting DFW. If you're ready to get you lifting on, we got you there. And the Throwing Factory. We've got shopping page, podcast. If you're